to Wrestling and Everything Coast to Coast with your hosts, Buddy Sotello Esquire, Mike Lano, and Evan Ginzburg. And would you like to introduce our guest for tonight?
Sure. Our guest is Jonathan C.T. Steele from Crazy Train Radio, which is one of our favorite programs because it's not just wrestling, an eclectic mix of wrestling and the arts, as we like to say. Welcome back, right, Jonathan.
Thank you. Oh, and where do I send this to?
Me. I with my holiday bills and what my heating's probably going to cost this month, I need it badly.
Of course, that would come from the lawyer, but yeah, we won't.
Yes, the lawyer's the first to jump.
Let me say something quick. I want to say something good and something not so good. Happy Kwanzaa to everybody who celebrates it, listening in on both shows. But also,
I didn't get you anything.
We lost. No, just good health for everybody and myself too. We lost the world's moral compass at only age 90. Anti-apartheid. I mean, this guy worked so hard for human rights, peace activists globally, getting rid of apartheid. That was Archbishop Desmond Tutu, and
I actually met him, Mike.
Did you?
I met him back in the 80s. Yeah, very sweet guy, nice guy.
He seemed like totally
down to earth, regular guy. Yeah.
So,
why? How'd you meet him? How'd you run it?
He was walking around in Manhattan. I just walked up to him and got his autograph.
Wow.
That couldn't be any nicer.
That's the beauty of living in New York City. You really can run into literally anybody in the world.
Well, Jonathan would like this because Evan and I, the last time I stayed there, and I was watching a friend of Evan's place. I forget where it was, but it was like I could walk to Mariel Hemingway's restaurant, who she had it at the time, and I would later interview her in person. And she said when she got divorced, the restaurant went away. But Evan and I were in where were we at? Soho or something, and we saw Steven Tyler from Aerosmith with his daughter and
yeah.
And I guess his wife, who looked younger than his daughter, or his girlfriend,
yes.
whoever she was.
You know who has a restaurant in New York now? Angela Mao, Deadly China Doll. Remember Enter the Dragon? Bruce Lee's sister.
Oh, yeah.
She got killed in Enter the Dragon. She did about 25 movies. She was a big star back in the 70s. She's got a Chinese restaurant in Queens. Yeah.
What about Moby? Moby, the DJ, singer, etc. Does he still have that restaurant?
I'm not sure, but it was big for a while. I don't know.
It was a big vegan place, but he also had like milkshakes and stuff that I think most of us would like.
Yeah.
And Jonathan, now in your neighborhood, who's the famous people hanging out in your neighborhood?
What neighborhood is it?
Well, in my part of South Jersey, not many. It would probably be, I guess, closest to me per se, and he's active right now in the NFL, would be Corey Clement, who won a Super Bowl with the Eagles in 2017, now playing for the dreaded Cowboys.
Yeah, or having
NFL.
An easy time of it against Washington just before I started the show tonight. We had that. So welcome to our final show of 2021. What a really strange and interesting year, I guess we can say, for this year. For many of us, going through not only our own personal challenges, but the state of wrestling itself. My brother's here for the holidays, so we actually last night were catching up on Dark Side of the Ring. We're doing a Dark Side of the Ring marathon to kind of remind us of.
You look at the photo credits, Russ, to see most of those, like Luna, Chris Canyon, the steroid trial. There was just one photo, but I was in probably 60% of them in terms of photos and photo credits. So I hope you look at those credits. Everybody.
We just saw the Road Warrior one, so I don't think your photos were on that one. But
I have shunted off a ton. I was just asked, and then I was on Busted Open Friday or Thursday, and Mark Henry asked me to whisk them in. So I'm going to get credit. I'm going to get paid. But most importantly, a lot of people haven't seen these photos I have of Owen Hart backstage doing a lot of cool stuff. And they've got that tournament going on that I'm sure Jonathan can talk about that for both the men and the women. It's nice. Martha Hart refuses to work with Vince, for the obvious reasons, but she is working with the sort of the anti-Vince, a guy who cares about his athletes and people. It seems that way, and a do-gooder in Tony Khan. Jonathan, let me ask you, and then hear from the other guys, their thoughts on Tony Khan, because we have these guys, and I've talked about it a little the last month on various shows. Tony Khan and Billy Corgan, the rock star god from Smashing Pumpkins. These guys seem to be promoters with a heart, and they're doing good things. The ratings reflect that, whereas Vince's ratings down the toilet. Evan can talk about the fiasco at Madison Square Garden tonight. Tickets were.
You mean the one he posted about 45 minutes ago?
Yeah.
But they were offering the tickets, so was it 2 for 1? Ev, you saw for a while there, and they were papering to get anybody in the place, And
they only drew 5,800, which is pathetic. I mean, they used to draw more than that monthly with Bruno and Backlund and Morales. 5,800 with 2 for 1 tickets, 2 steel cage matches advertised. Since we're on this, I'll briefly go into it. The main event was supposed to be Big E and Rollins and Owens in a cage, which you'd think would be a draw, and also women in a cage. But ultimately, Rollins says he has COVID, from what I'm hearing. So it ended up being Owens and Edge, which is actually a good match. But in the cage.
It ended up being in the cage?
Owens and Edge in the cage for no particular reason. See, cages used to be a violent, bloody blow-off to a feud. Now they just toss guys together, and they're kind of vanilla. I saw I saw John Cena and what's the guy's name? The knockoff of Shawn Michaels. What's his name?
Dolph Ziggler.
Dolph Ziggler. Yeah. I saw them in a cage, and it was totally vanilla. It's like you're watching it and you're going, Ziggler looks like a nice guy. If he walked down the street, you'd shake hands with him. There was no intensity.
He's a funny stand-up. We have Colt Cabana, we got Mick Foley, and there might be a couple I'm leaving out. Very funny, the guy, when he does his stand-up. He hasn't done it in a while.
He should stick to stand-up, because as far as wrestling, he's vanilla. Just like half.
He's earning like $4 million a year. I'd be vanilla for $4 million a year. Considering he's earning more than all the wrestlers that got fired recently.
Here's something I want Jonathan to hear, because sometimes I say this stuff, and I don't know if he ever believes me, but I brought Amy Schumer, who Dolph Ziggler used to date before she got married to the chef. She had just done that Comedy Central roast. I forget who it was, if it was Justin Bieber or Alec Baldwin, or maybe it was Trump. But she hadn't hit that zenith, and I brought her on Legends with me and Evan, and she was, really pleasant. She wasn't super sarcastic, as you would see her not break character like a wrestler on all these other shows. But we had Amy Schumer on for, God knows, at least 45 minutes. She was happy to do it, like Chelsea Handler and Whitney Cummings and some of these others who would later hit their zenith. But really, it's anyway. I don't know how he got her, but why wouldn't you? Why wasn't that ever trumped up in WWE that, hey, this guy was dating for a while there? She was the hottest comic on the planet.
She broke into movies.
Yeah, well, some of her movies didn't do that great. The first one did. But why wouldn't you plug that? Why wouldn't you plug Mick Foley all the times he was on Jon Stewart's The Daily Show? That he's on there as like the wrestler, liberal thinking correspondent.
Because Vince is right wing and he's a Trump boy. So.
But can I go back to answer Mike's question from a couple minutes ago?
No, we're sorry. You lost that opportunity.
Next visit.
Yeah.
Right
go ahead.
Well, yeah, because I know how Mike can go. Love him for it. I told him many a times he should sell a T-shirt, because he always goes during his question, then I'll shut up.
Yeah, that should be
the subtitle of our show. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm thinking I'm going to work with a Pro Wrestling Tees and get Mike a shirt. Then I'll shut up. But as far as the AEW product that you were asking about and how they and Billy Corgan, I don't know as much with NWA, but I can say because I do have contacts within AEW, both in the office and talent-wise, as Dr. Mike would know. And the thing I like about it, and it has nothing to do with the ratings and any of that stuff, I appreciate that they are giving their talent insurance and pay time off and, you know, like a traditional business would give you in different options.
And Moxley, for example, there's a great example. He's given all the time he needs to get sober, get cleaned up, be himself again. And it's great to see. You know, I wish we would have had that a long time ago. Because wrestling can be a corporate thing, but Tony is juggling it very, very well between, a corporate thing and right now with his dad and the Jacksonville, Florida team, they're going through some negative press and stuff like that, but to juggle corporate stuff and then be like a total human being and a caring guy, and hear this guy every week. He does a segment on that Sirius XM show. This guy really loves the business. He hasn't lost that love. The shows are off the charts. I mean, I never fast forward anything on AEW the way I do. I went through SmackDown in probably 18 minutes, 2 hours of SmackDown, not even 18 minutes, just, blipped. And there were some good matches, but you get through the crap. I don't do that with AEW or any other group, not even Impact. So,
I actually just watched the Rampage from last night, the Christmas special, before we jumped on here. So
how was it?
Pretty good. You had, I think it was like 3 matches with the main event being
I think
3 or 4 matches.
Squash with Wardlow or something like that. I can't even recall. It had something that was fairly quick. Where all Wardlow did was just like powerbomb the guy 4 or 5 times, and that was the end of that. So wasn't the greatest, but it hell of a lot better than even Raw or SmackDown. It is interesting the SmackDown vignette with Heyman that you guys can talk about if you guys watched it, because he's producing that. That was the best segment of. Why can't you do that with talent that needs to get over? Like some of these talent, we never even heard them speak. We could do a vignette on Dewdrop and learn about her background and all this stuff. They did an out of the park 5-star Heyman thing, but it's only because Heyman is the producer of the.
But here's why I think is that Vince doesn't, deep down, he doesn't want you to care about some of these people. He actually, because he might fire them 48 hours later. There's nobody right now other than if your last name is McMahon, or maybe if you're Triple H, that you can't get fired. That there isn't someone that's unfireable or uncuttable. Just look at Bearcat, how much they were pushing him. And if people did care about him, well, that didn't really pay off because he was gone, 2 months after they monstrously pushed him.
The kiss of death is when you see the stupid vignette that lasts like 5 seconds with like Veer, the big, huge Indian American guy, coming soon. And they kept doing that with
Nathan James, anyone?
Nathan Jones?
Jones, yeah, Nathan Jones, anyone? Yes.
Why can't they do, because they had, that Vince was so gung-ho about Brett's on his way out, do the right thing and blah, blah, blah. Do the right thing when these guys are let go, like Braun Strowman, for example. Why not explain or have something where he leaves the way they do it on NXT when they got rid of those guys that, all the veterans. It's like every single veteran on NXT is gone. There's another show I never fast forwarded, but I am now since it's gone to the 2.0 NXT. But with a lot of those guys that they got rid of, John Morrison or something like that, why couldn't they have done something, have the Miz destroy him or something?
Why not do an old school loser leaves town match?
Exactly.
Well, that's because, Vince treats you like a bad Jewish relative. It's like, you're dead to me. And they like, and you are never to be spoken of in the family again. Unless, of course,
Unless you can make it money, he always brings a lot of folks back
That's the thing. Is that yes, you're dead to him.
There was probably because there was the multitude, a huge, tremendous amount of people, every single firing. You had those two in what, like, just the span of like 2 weeks. You had Taya Valkyrie, and then like 2 weeks later, her husband gets shit canned, and those other two couples. And
82 wrestlers this year. 82.
Yes.
Well, Eva Marie, you knew that was going to be a fiasco and would taint Piper, aka Dewdrop, who's a tremendous wrestler in Europe and NXT UK. And then they bring her in as a joke with Eva Marie, who you knew, that person who could not wrestle.
I think Jonathan just died on camera.
No, sorry. I want to make sure.
We thought that was it for you.
I mentioned Eva Marie's career, and Jonathan went,
yeah.
Beautiful girl, but the shit's in the ring. I don't know why they would have ever brought her back. They learn from their last lesson, or I don't know.
But I'm thinking about this, and Mike, was it you that said about caring about people?
Yeah.
Because if we're going to sit and book the territory, as they would say, wouldn't it be the more people you care about, the more money you can potentially make?
Not according to Vince. That's not how he works.
Well, let's be positive, because I always dog Vince. But in this case, I want to prop up Tony, because the wealth of talent, when he has Kyle O'Reilly coming in, and some other vets are going to be coming there, like Johnny Gargano, who's absolutely incredible, and his wife, when the baby's hatched in about 2 months. What a wealth of talent. The talent pool in AEW really puts WWE to shame.
So the fans were complaining that AEW stole these guys from NXT and WWE. Meanwhile, they were in ROH together, all these guys.
Who did
WWE get them from? ROH.
Look at all the guys that are on top in a lot of these companies. Well, both, and even to a certain extent, the NWA and MLW, all ROH guys that rose to the top. Kevin Steen, Kevin Owens, and Tyler Black, who now is Seth. Just a ton of those guys. And they're smaller, more athletic, more exciting to watch, and they're leaving WWE in droves for AEW, which is the place to be. And it's fun that the folks that I talked to, like Mark Henry because the show was over, the Busted Open show last Thursday, day before Christmas or Christmas Eve, and we're talking off air about it, as I have with Taz and others, and they're just so happy and at peace, and it's good to see. These guys really deserve it. I want to say something else before I forget it. Watch the TMZ, I guess it's Merry Effing Goodbye to 2021 special tonight, because Becky Lynch is on there. And of note, Jonathan in particular, and you can maybe tell me what's going on here, is her hair was half dark brown, so her natural color, and just some of the ends were the red color. So I don't know. They had to film this thing recently because it's a goodbye to all the stupid stuff, like the Paul brothers in boxing of 2021. But what's going on with Becky's hair? Maybe they just filmed it, and maybe she's got a couple of days off or whatever. But her hair, she let it go back.
Yeah, I don't know too much about that, honestly.
Yeah.
I think we should do an hour on Becky's hair color. I think that would be great radio.
Because it's so noticeably different. She's on TV the other night, all red, fake, hair, which is the ridiculous thing. Her hair is red because she's supposed to be, Irish. So they give her, the full Becky name and all this stuff. We cannot get away from the stereotypes that go back to wrestling's roots, the World War II stuff and the ethnic stuff. Thank God Bruno was just Bruno Sammartino, just a regular guy.
No gimmick.
No gimmick. No.
And no hair to dye.
Well, he had some at the beginning, but no pyro, no girl on his arm, no manager other than Arnie Skolin. So I take that back. But no entrance music, and the place, as Evan knows, the times I was in the Garden shooting, or Boston Garden, or Philly Spectrum, or Cap Center, etc., place out of their minds ballistic. Loudest I wish I had earplugs back then the way we would later for like Kane's, the dynamite popping, or any of the loud stuff, the pyro stuff. Because that was loud.
Buddy, is your brother Owen still alive?
Is he still alive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's flickering on and off on screen like a specter behind you.
Oh, I see. Can you move just a little bit there to the?
Maybe he's one of the ghosts of Christmas. What's the ghost?
That's right. The ghost of Christmas past.
He's the ghost of
Pedro Morales fan. He's a ghost of Christmas past.
A couple other agenda items I wanted to bring up, and one is this just the other day, Corporal Kirshner died. I don't know if you guys were aware of that.
Like a couple of years ago.
No, Michael James Penzel.
Like
he's in FMW and some of the other hardcore groups in Japan.
Yeah, Leatherface.
Yes, and also Corporal Kirshner for me is kind of interesting because to me at that time when they introduced Corporal Kirshner, that was the first time in my opinion, that Vince pushed something during that era that utterly did not get over. Everything else.
Hey, wait, what about Outback Jack?
That was after. That was the
Jimmy Jack Funk.
Yeah, Corporal Kirshner was at the time that they introduced Corporal Kirshner.
It was because Slaughter left. There was some heat, and maybe Evan or Jonathan can tell me why Slaughter left.
G.I. Joe.
Oh, because
AWA. He went to the AWA.
Oh, no, he went to the AWA because Vince let him go, but that was what Corporal Kirshner was, just the obvious, to replace this faux military guy. But what was the deal? He did the G.I. Joe without Vince's consent or something?
The way I heard it, and this was recent, that Slaughter was offered the G.I. Joe toy packaging and gimmick and all that fun stuff. And Vince wasn't happy because he was just signing on the LJN figures.
Correct.
And then, you can't do that, but Sarge owned the copyright and all that fun stuff of Sergeant Slaughter. And he goes, well, I can do what I want, almost like a Jesse Ventura, and did his own thing for a few years there.
Yeah, and Corporal Kirshner, before that, everything Vince had pushed as far as like gimmick characters was over tremendously. I mean, no matter what he tried, it was working out great, and everybody was eating it up with a spoon. And it was the heart of, Hulkamania, and everyone was just so thrilled with.
What's that photo up there that just popped up? What the heck was that?
Go ahead, and I'll explain after.
Oh, sorry, I should have brought it back up. Do you need me to? I'm not so sure.
No, go ahead and finish your.
To me that was because just the week before, or about 2 weeks before, I'd seen Corporal Kirshner, Mike Penzel as R.J. Reynolds fight against Jimmy Snuka and get just absolutely destroyed. And that was the first time as a wrestling fan I'd then seen a guy get gimmicked into something where he was just a jobber a couple weeks before, and then he's suddenly, being pushed as a guy.
He did that with Gilbert, who was what was his jobber name? His regular job? I forget now.
Dwayne Gill.
Yeah, Dwayne Gill.
Dwayne Gill. But again, R.J. Reynolds or Corporal Kirshner was years and years before that. Right. So this is the first time something like that had ever happened that I'd been watching, and so it was kind of an interesting awakening of like gimmickry and how and where Vince gets these guys from.
So basically,
there's a lot of shitty gimmicks. How many gimmicks did they give Barry Windham, the Widowmaker, after he had the Night's Run with Rotunda?
So what Buddy's doing here is a tribute to Corporal Kirshner by saying he flopped miserably. This is a great tribute.
Well,
wait, we should throw in there, though, too. This is a guy I knew well, and I've got some great stories, but I won't interrupt because Jonathan's hardly talked. Blackjack Lanza. There was a guy who really was a name in the business. not putting down Corporal Kirshner, but it didn't really last. I don't even know how long he lasted with the company. I can't even think of any feuds. Did he have any feuds with Iron Sheik or Volkov?
He wrestled
Volkov,
Nikolai
WrestleMania 2.
Nikolai.
But it wasn't. I don't think he was above a C level performer. Because for me, it just felt like, oh, there's a knockoff Slaughter. It's so obvious what they're doing.
And what about Vince bringing in Don Kanoodle and wasting him? They could have, he was Slaughter's partner in the NWA. That would have worked, but I guess Vince didn't see the 6-pack of abs or whatnot.
What did he do with Kanoodle? Was he just jobbing?
Kanoodle came in and they were jobbing him out, basically. He was always on the undercard. They totally wasted him. He was here in the 80s.
Under his own name in WWF?
Under his own name, sure. Saw him many times live.
A lone TV taping of like 2 matches the Freebirds had, all 3 of them. Who would predict that Michael Hayes would come back, in the booking, et cetera, capacity and all of that stuff. But they had a gold mine there, straight from Georgia Championship and AWA and everything else. The 3 Freebirds. How could you blow that? Jonathan, what happened with that and Buzz Sawyer? So
I heard the Freebirds literally pissed on Vince's leg in a meeting.
Really?
That's what I heard. Seriously. I don't know if it's true or an urban myth, but.
Well, John, what about Buzz Sawyer? And did you hear that about the Freebirds? Why they failed in like '84 to be hired full time?
I don't know much about Buzz Sawyer's tenure, and obviously I've heard Michael Hayes deny it over many, many times, but wouldn't surprise me, the infamous Andre throwing him out of the locker room because of being high as a kite, let's just say, at the time, with pills and whatnot. The story was that Michael tells was they thought they had a day off, but yet Bam Bam Gordy said, no, we're going to the show, Michael. And Michael and Andre helped try to bring them in because he thought the act was great. But it was it was the first day Andre was an agent behind the scenes, which don't get talked about much.
No.
So, and he was just like one of those, and went from there, and Vince wasn't happy and felt he couldn't trust him, which is like a hill of beans when Vince says, I can't trust you.
It was pretty major. I can't even remember. Maybe not even All Japan. I can't remember. Did Gordy ever have a singles in Dallas or Atlanta with Andre? I cannot. Somebody ought to do some research on that. I can't, for the life of me, think of those guys. And Andre had so many in the 70s in particular, and I got to shoot him against Ernie Ladd a couple of times. And then there were some other, Don Leo Jonathan in both Montreal and Houston. But I can't think of, a guy approaching Andre's height, even though, he was, I think, just legit 6'11". And Gordy could have, they would have worked well together, I think, because Gordy could work with anybody. Do you guys recall just a singles between Terry Gordy and Andre?
Well, did you get to shoot Andre and Hansen over in Japan, Mike?
No, sadly. But there's another guy. Yeah, well, Brody or Hansen. I mean, even though Bobo, Andre was good, and Bobo could barely move, and Andre was, Andre. People kind of, I think, have glorified his work rate, but he was, up until maybe 77, he could do, quite a few things and move without having, get up off the mat without having to grab onto the ropes, which we would sadly see, in the 80s and stuff.
I saw Andre in 74 at the Garden against Kowalski, and the guy could move back then. There you go.
That wasn't that the undercard to, I think I shot that one. Was that the one with Bruno and Strongbow against the Valiants on top?
Probably, yeah.
I also wanted
since
to
we're talking Andre, great book if you get a chance to see it. Pat LaPrade and Bernard, great guy. I always have
know both the guys really well. Bertrand, he's there. Yeah, they. I keep nagging them. I would love to see an Ed Carpentier book because this guy was one of my favorites. Even though he was more of a Argentina Rocca flying around the ring guy, he was very nice guy and big wherever he went. And the weirdest, it was the third weirdest Styles clash ever. Him challenging Jack Briscoe for the NWA title at the Kiel Auditorium in St. Louis when he left us in L.A. He and Firpo. Another infamous Mike LaBelle payday, and both of them were out in February '75. And Ferp went back to Detroit for Sheik. Carpentier goes in and knocks him dead almost immediately in the main event in St. Louis, which was primo.
But Mike, here's the big question. So I'm a huge Carpentier fan. When I was a kid, he was a big star, and people don't realize what goes into writing a book. When you're really serious about writing a book, you're talking hundreds, if not thousands of hours. So how many Carpentier books could you possibly sell in 2022? How many Carpentier fans are still alive? No, seriously. I mean, to put in thousands of hours.
Carpentier book?
No, this is another one, speaking of the Canadian territory, by Pat.
My point is, unless Carpentier is your childhood hero and you're willing to put, let's say, 1,000 hours into writing this book and a couple of hundred people buy it and you never make a dime on it, it's a big commitment. It really is. People don't realize.
Well, and the thing that would kill me is that Brutus Beefcake, his self-published book, would sell more than Carpentier.
Yeah, well, he'll be out there every weekend at appearances signing them. That's the difference. To us, Spiros Arion, Waldo von Erich, these are huge names. How many books would they sell? It's questionable. You'd have to really be passionate.
Well, now if you made them into Marvel superheroes, though, then 9 out of 10 movie watchers would go see them, on a given weekend.
Speaking of which, I'll make this very brief, not to interrupt the wrestling. I went to see American Underdog today about Kurt Warner. I was the only person in the theater. It was me alone, nobody else. Okay. So 9 out of 10 people are going to see Spider-Man, and pretty much every other movie is dying a horrible death. It was like a private screening. I was the only ticket in that place. So
I forget what his challenge was. He had some kind of a physical challenge or something. What was his, overcoming the odds type of thing?
He was with a minor college, the kind of college that they didn't take seriously. So then he ended up playing arena football, which they don't take seriously. Then he was too old. He had been out of college for many years. And finally, somebody, saw a video of him and just said, there's something about this guy. I like this guy.
He was working in a grocery store, basically.
It was a stock boy in a grocery store. It's a very inspirational, moving film. I mean, it's hokey in parts, and it's it's actually a religious film. So some of the heavy-handed religious stuff won't be for everybody. But you walk out of the theater feeling good. It's a nice guy that defied all the odds and made it through just perseverance. And there's a good love story. I enjoyed it for the most part. I'm not even a football fan.
Hey, you were
COVID. Now he's a Hall of Famer.
Evan was COVID safe. There's nobody in there. Have either any of you three guys seen the new Wes Anderson movie? I really want to go see that. And I don't know if it's even in the theaters because, the special effects, cartoon, superhero things are, taking storm. I think the number 2 movie of the year, the first one was Spider-Man already. And then the one with the Asian American cast that was, great on many levels. But I don't see the Wes Anderson film in any theaters. I don't think
they play in little odd houses. Let me tell you something. As somebody who makes films, basically it's $20,000 a week to have a theater to showcase your film. $20,000 a week. That's a lot of tickets, especially when people are scared to go into theaters. because of COVID. Now, if they saw that there's virtually nobody in the theaters, like every time I go, they might be less scared of COVID because it felt perfectly safe. But then again, I'm not a doctor. But my point being, there's a lot of great movies that are made that never will see a movie theater. And if they do, it's going to be these little art houses in major cities. And they're just not going to hit the multiplex because people don't support them. I saw Respect about Aretha Franklin. My wife and I were the only two people in the theater. I mean, Aretha Franklin, so.
Not an art house movie. That should be a blockbuster.
Blockbuster. It died a horrible death like most other movies this year.
Well, In the Heights, and then the remake of Steven Spielberg thing.
West Side Story.
Yeah, that didn't do well at all. I don't even think it made the top 5 monetarily its first week. Which
they said 9 out of 10 people went to Spider-Man. 9 out of 10. So the 1/10 is divided by every other movie. Can you imagine?
Maybe it's because of the escapism, with COVID and everything being the drizzling shits, that wrestling term. You really want the ultimate escape. That's probably. I mean, Jonathan, have you seen that new Spider-Man?
I have not. I've not much into the Marvel comics. I actually just sat, and I'll give it a cheap plug, even though they're older. Warner Brothers, because of the podcast, send me movies and such. But they actually, just to update my backlog, sent me the Christopher Nolan Batman series from the early 2000s. Batman Begins, Dark Knight, and Dark Knight. So I spent the past couple of days over the holiday actually sitting and watching them and the extras and all that fun stuff.
Who sent you your purple shirt collection?
The Joker.
Every shirt is purple except
the
one.
Joker.
Yeah. Look behind you. Every shirt is purple.
You got it from Princess Estate. They had an estate
set.
Yeah,
yeah, unfortunately, the electric guitar's out in the garage. I'd start doing Purple Rain, but...
Yes.
So I also wanted to bring up as a topic, 38 years ago today, on this date, was when Bob Backlund lost the title to the Iron Sheik. Your guys' thoughts as to that moment in history?
It was the beginning of the end. It was a good era with Heel Piper and Orndorff and Snooker, and 2-3 years later, it was a total cartoon. I mean, Vince, they could say from here to tomorrow, the guy's a genius, blah, blah, blah. He took something wonderful and turned it into crap pretty much, and not immediately, because I loved Heel Piper. I loved Orton. A lot of those guys were great in the beginning, but by 87, 88, that was a cartoon for the most part. And it's a shame because it didn't have to be. They were making plenty of money with his dad. There was, big arenas up and down the East Coast. The greed kicked in. It became a T-shirt company instead of a wrestling company.
And the weirdest thing, and we've all talked about this, is Billy Graham when we had him on, and he's told me, I'm sure he's told Evan, maybe Jonathan in person, that he kept pushing. He pushed Vince Sr. to turn him a face champion because he knew all he had was, and that's the longest Vince Sr. ever went with a heel champion. There were always transitions. Koloff and Stasiak, boom, just quick transitions. And Billy kept saying, look, if we make a T-shirt, if you turn me face, have a face champion, we could make a mint off T-shirts. So he saw the validity of that, or the future revenue of that. Let me ask Jonathan, were you going to try WF or WW? I don't know when you started as a fan, but were you able to see Backlund as champion at the Philly Spectrum or any venues near you or anything?
I would, and this will show my age, I am only 37. So I was born the year before Mania 1. But
his fondest memories are of Corporal Kirshner. His fondest wrestling memories.
Drink to Kirshner. No.
That's right.
I got to tell you, well, I think if you watch, I'm sure you watched the old Bruno matches and stuff. you see why I'm so passionate about the territories.
I do.
It was such magic, and every territory, and I'll say Tri-WF was so much fun, and the Garden, my favorite venue, was so electric, but every territory totally unique, from the fans, the way they would react, the ref, the ring announcers, the TV, obviously the boys in the territory, the promoter, everything was different everywhere you went, whether it's AWA or Florida or St. Louis or LA or San Francisco or Calgary or Winnipeg. It's just magic. Or Japan, Mexico, Canada.
Well, I'm curious to know, because Russ brought up about the title change between Backlund and Sheik. Sheiky Baby, as everybody likes to refer, because of Stern and such. And obviously, you know how it is. Evan kind of hit it at it earlier. Telegraph, telephone, or telephone, telegraph, telewrestler type deal. That old line. But how much of that do you believe the story of Sheik being offered $100,000 or whatever it was at the time to break Hogan's leg?
He said it to me 17 times when I spent the weekend at his house. So he believes it.
Well, you know, what stage of Sheik was this?
This was when Tony Tickets was his manager, probably 15 years ago. We flew out to Georgia, and we spent the weekend with him, and he told me over and over and over again that Vern said that. So he, you know, whether it's true or not, he kept saying it. I don't know.
But the thing was that Backlund was upset that he was being, you know, downgraded almost immediately. He didn't hardly see it coming, and then he was asked to be a heel. And his whole life, he'd been this clean, amateur, athletic guy, whether it was his Florida days and his AWA days, because Vern broke him in. And then, you know, historic run in St. Louis, amazing matches with Jack Briscoe and a babyface Ted DiBiase and all that stuff. And then Munchnick was the one that recommended him to Vince Sr. And it was just kind of sad, because, you know, then it was straight to Hogan, and there's another transition champion in Khosrow, Iron Sheik. But Ev, do you remember what Backlund's feud was just prior to that? Because it seemed like it was out of the blue.
Mass Superstar was pretty much towards the end of his run. They wrestled twice at the Garden. He had wrestled Mosca maybe the year before. Yeah, Mass Superstar was towards the end. It's all kind of a blur, but what was weird was Backlund ended up going to Pro Wrestling USA with Gagne, and he was kind of mid-card. He was wrestling Zbyszko for Pro Wrestling USA, and he I don't know. Gagne did some strange stuff with that Pro Wrestling USA. I go to one of their shows at the Meadowlands, and Brody's in the second match wrestling Steve-O. You know, at the peak of his fame, Brody's in the prelim, Backlund's mid-card. You know, it made no sense, a lot of that booking. And Slaughter's on top with Kamala and Billy Robinson and these guys, and he had cooled off and lost the step also. And oddly enough, they had the Freebirds against the Road Warriors 2 months in a row, and that didn't draw, and the matches weren't particularly good. The first match was the Road Warriors and the Freebirds. The rematch was all three Road Warriors against the Freebirds and Ellering, and neither drew. And those were like the hottest tag teams in the world at the time. And the Pro Wrestling USA just didn't draw big in our area for whatever reason.
Now, I'd be curious to know, sorry, Mike, because you talk about the Backlund being offered to turn heel after dropping a belt and such, but he left for 8 to 10 years and came back 93-ish to...
Absolutely not, because Vince Jr., a lot of people don't know Vince Jr. before Vince Sr. died, and we all thought, what the hell is going on? You know, did Vince Jr. somehow... allegedly, there were all these rumors, you know, push his dad out or finagle, and then we hear his dad passes. But when Roy Shire knew that Vince and Vern were both coming in, because he had announced the January 81 Battle Royal would be his last at the Cow Palace in San Francisco, and that's why he went to the newspapers in LA and San Francisco, exposed the biz completely, to F it up for both of them coming in. But putting aside the fact that Vern came in and was promoting the Bay Area, San Francisco, Oakland Bay Area at the Oakland Indoor Arena, he knew, and right away, the month later, Vince came in. So that was his first foray into going national outside of the realm of the Northeast. Tri-WF, WWF was coming in and promoting in San Francisco well before, 2 years before the nationalization thing, started in, I guess we'll call it December of '83, give or take, 23 months. We're talking February of '81. Vince has his first show in San Francisco at the Cow Palace, and he has to bring in all that talent. But some of the leftover Roy Shire guys were undercard, Woody Farmer and Pepper Gomez, etc.
Well, what I was going to ask was, because obviously I remember Backlund as a heel against Bret Hart for that year and a half period, and really enjoyed that. Do you think if he was a heel, meaning Bob Backlund, in the mid '80s, how well would that have gone over? But also, you guys talk about the change of the cartoon-esque when Hogan got the belt and things progressed. If Vince Jr. didn't go national at the time, because obviously we know cable TV was becoming a thing, you had TBS and such, who would have stepped into that to have a full nationwide coverage? Or
Ole was already doing it with Georgia Championship. He was
with TBS,
just the East Coast, outside of New York. Well, it was mostly Philly, Baltimore, arenas like that before
Ohio
doing it. But the Backlund thing, that Russ, it is an interesting topic talking about him, because he needed money and he finally agreed to, go against his better instincts and do the heel thing. And he did a nice run. And I think he grew to adopt it. And, seeing him at WrestleMania 2015 and having him pose with Bruno, he was like staying in character the whole time. I told you this story. Remember I told you Backlund is telling me he's a total conspiracy guy. He goes, all dentists are ripoff. I'm going to yank out all my teeth myself and just have a lab guy do my dentures. And that's exactly what he ended up doing.
My grandfather did that. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Yeah.
I just had one done on Christmas Eve.
A tooth removed?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
That's a whole nother...
Buddy was complaining about his bills. I'm going to pull out all of his teeth and save him some dentist money.
That's the only... No, please don't, because it's the only thing in my body that's still intact. I have one cavity in my entire mouth. My teeth are almost perfect. So, no, that's the one thing that my brain and my teeth are going to be the two things that survive me. The rest of me is just going to turn into a pile of goo pretty soon.
Jake Roberts, when he speaks, and maybe Jonathan can tell me, where the hell is Jake Roberts? He's not been on TV, managing the guy when they have Murder Hawk, what's his face, on. He hasn't been. Archer. I don't think Jake has been on their TV really, maybe once or twice earlier this year, and that's it. Where is he? He's AWOL. But when he speaks, he too is wearing what we call in the dental trade burgers. That's the sick name for a patient that has dentures, because when you look at the upper or lower without the dentures in place, it looks like hamburger meat. And that's where that dentistry has its own carny language, and that's what we call, anyway, we call denture patients burgers. That is why Jake Roberts has that weird speech thing now. He's not talking the way he used to. And there's, Backlund, if you talk to him now in person, because he's not on TV. But anyway, what was I interrupting, Jonathan?
I'm not sure, but hey, we have about a few minutes left. I wanted to go over, because it's our last show of the year, the list of all the wrestlers that we lost, the wrestling personalities that we lost, and maybe get some of your thoughts on the most
incredible. And
yeah, I mean, from Bobby Eaton to Butch Reed, to Daphne, to Jim Crockett Jr., Jody Hamilton, the assassin, New Jack, Paul Orndorff, Ryan Sakota, the Patriot, Angelo Mosca, Barry Orton, Blackjack Lanza, Buddy Colt, Corporal Kirshner, Don Kernoodle, Dominic DiNucci, who I knew you guys knew pretty well, Jimmy Ray,
Sheamus in his youngest days,
Josephus Hudson, and to us, we did an amazing tribute show on Dear Melissa Coates, and it's been a hell of a year to lose all those incredible wrestling personalities. Obviously, Melissa Coates was very special for us. Is there a name in that list that means something to you guys in particular?
We're going to take the next 4 hours and pay tribute to all of them because we have memories of all of them. So that was a terrible mistake Buddy just did because he's the engineer. We're going to wrap this up around 4 a.m. Let me start with Paul Orndorff, how great that guy was. That guy was a total package. And when I say total package, I mean it. That guy could wrestle, he could brawl, he had charisma, he could talk, he had a great look, a great gimmick. That guy was elite, an elite wrestler.
Though, I enjoyed him more in Georgia Championship as the Brahma Bull, which Gordon Soley called him. He was out of this world, like Buzz Sawyer at that time. I mean, just a stud. This was before his arm injury, which, plagued him most of his WWF career, but he was still terrific. Remember, he had that huge Toronto house with Hogan. They set all kinds of records in the main event.
Him and Hogan were great together, and I'm not a huge Hogan fan, but Orndorff got the best of him, boy. They were great together. And let me just say, as somebody who went to the NWA every month in Philly for several years in the 80s, the Midnight Express, to me, were the greatest tag team of all time. Eaton was phenomenal, and they were so perfect because Eaton was not a great talker and Cornette was. They were just perfect together. It almost didn't matter who the other guy was. Lane was great. They were all great. It was pretty much
the other guy. Condrey was the other guy.
Condrey was more meat and potatoes, old school. Lane was flashier, but they were both great teams. Cornette was the mouthpiece. Lane wasn't a bad talker either, but Eaton.
I think Bobby Eaton was the greatest. He's called this, and it's true. Bobby Eaton was the greatest tag team wrestler ever, at least from 1970 something on. Really
tremendous.
Anybody put him with Arn Anderson, etc., Terry Taylor, Bobby Eaton was phenomenal.
And I was telling somebody, when the Road Warriors came down the aisle, the Road Warriors, and their music hit, the place went out of their minds. And interestingly, when the Midnight Express came down the aisle and that music hit, the place popped also because they knew they were going to see a great match. It was a different kind of, response. They were amazing.
Jonathan, out of that list, who was the most influential to you and why?
Well, I always liked Paul Orndorff there, but I want to go a different direction with this if I can and be a little serious just for a second, which is rare for me. But out of that list, I'd have to say, and I know I've talked to Mike about this, Daphne.
Yeah.
Because, and the reason I say that is, especially this time you hear about stuff and whatnot. So mental health stuff, and hopefully she can leave a positive impact. They got that thing #tag me in, trying to help.
Tremendous. That video that Mickey James got all those people, that is so heartwarming.
Yeah.
I was so, I'm not looking at I don't know, what can we expect in 2022, but that really puts me in a positive mood. What a tremendous thing that is. If you've not seen.
So if it could bring attention to that kind of thing, the mental health side of things, her death won't be in vain. Now I'm trying to look at the real life side of things there.
No, that's definitely understandable. Also, about the story about Melissa Coates and her battle against cancer and trying so hard to fight back.
But it wasn't cancer; it was blood clots.
Sorry, blood clots. It was, but her fight against that, and then trying to come back from that, and then still being struck down tragically, such a young age. It's just really,
which was horrific for her. And then that happened. Let me just bring it to a positive thing too. I'll call it a reunion. I won't even call it by name. Probably about 6-7 years ago, or right before Heenan passed away. Orndorff was one of those that was going to get an award, and he came from the back of the room up to the podium, and Heenan and his wife Cindy were there, but their backs were turned, and Bobby's in the wheelchair. He couldn't speak or anything, and Orndorff is going up, but before he does, he walks out of his way, goes behind Heenan and grabs him by the head and plants a big kiss on the top of his head and went up there. And
it's been a tough year, a tough series of years for people. The last 2 years, including myself losing my father in October. It's just everybody, I think, has lost something.
October, same month.
Yeah. And Mike Lano lost his mother. It's been, I think, a tough series of years for everybody. Let's try to get it on a more positive note. Last couple minutes that we have of the show, which is, what is something that you are looking forward to wrestling wise in 2022?
I'm looking forward to ending the show so I can go watch Curb Your Enthusiasm, the season finale.
I'm looking forward to Joe Turco beating Roman Reigns for the title. Yeah.
Pleasure for you.
Yeah.
What about Crazy Train Radio? What can we look forward to from Crazy Train Radio in 2020?
Well, there is 2 things that I think we can do. And after we pass over the new year, and both Mike and Evan were a part of the food bank fundraiser we did, because COVID was still pretty heavy. But we're going to do something in March, but this time for a children's hospital in LA, where Mike is from. So that's one thing. The other thing is, and I got to say thank you again, even though it's been my brand for 9 years, but had this for about a year and a half, the dugout mugs. And these mugs are made out of the actual wood that they make baseball bats out of. And I can pass along links to Buddy and stuff. It's everyone sold. We give royalties to a group out of Seattle called Operation Ward 57 that helps wounded warriors and stuff like that. So
that's great. Definitely post that on our Facebook site and give our fans information about how they can subscribe, how they can order. It's just past Christmas season.
Yeah, dugoutmugs.com/CTR.
I'd like to get one of those. I'd like to get one of those and beat some indie promoters with them. Just beat them mercilessly.
Well, pimply face.
Can we hit Eric Sims with it?
Yeah,
I know I'll get a message about it. But
pimply face money marks. Well, Eric Sims. I don't know. We got to get Smart and Chic up so he fires his ass.
But also, when you're ready to do that promotion in March, please come back to us so that we can help you promote that.
Yeah, because we are gonna. I already heard from several legendary wrestlers. AEW also offered some current talent, and so we're just trying to put all that together. But if I can, Buddy, February when I have everything scheduled, would love to.
We'd love to have you back on, and we'd love to help promote a good cause like that. That's one thing that I would love for our show to be able to do in a greater level next year, is to help promotions that are working with charities and so forth to help promote those events. You're about to say something, Evan?
I was going to say I was very impressed when Jonathan turned down interviews with Madonna and Elton John to keep slots open for Dewdrop. I was very impressed with that. Yeah.
But, well, now that I had a chance to read, since we're doing books, Elton John's book.
Yeah.
2022.
There you go.
Or the Paul McCartney double book. What was I going to say? Piper Niven is not related to David Niven, and Piper Niven is the real name of Dewdrop.
Oh, okay.
No, she's
that name's the shits.
Yeah, maybe that's why they went with Dewdrop. But so
no, I bet Dewdrop was the shits. But
okay, there you go. So why don't you promote your Crazy Train Radio on our show here for your for our fans to know about how they can follow you more, Jonathan?
Well, easily can find us on all major platforms: Google, Apple, Spotify, all that fun stuff. Also have a YouTube channel. Like I said, these lovely mugs are dugoutmugs.com/CTR, and all over Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So
great. What guests you have coming up on your show?
Well, I know Mike's
working
been
on Jeff Jarrett. Jeff Jarrett after the first of the year.
What's that?
Jeff Jarrett.
Yes, we're gonna have that book. Me and Mike just actually talked to and released last week. Jumpin' Jim Brunzell. I actually just released a chat with David Secaucus from the original E Street Band. So, got a couple of things out there. Ian Douglas, who was a writer for several wrestling books as well. So there's a couple of things that just got released. And like he said, Jarrett's going to be in the first of the year. Hopefully Rip Rogers and a few other things we're going to have wrestling related.
Well, one of these days when you get hard up for guests, you can always have Buddy Sotello on there. I'm always able to be. I'm always ready to do a cross interview with another podcast. So
well,
it's really nice.
Check clears.
I'm sorry.
As long as your check clears, you're more than welcome.
Exactly.
It's Miller time, boys. It's Miller time.
All right, folks.
I'll stick with the whiskey.
Yes. On that note, as everyone's getting ready to get pounded here, we'll
hey,
call.
Watch how you say that.
and really thank you very much for having you on as a guest this week. Looking forward to have you on future shows, and thanks everyone. It's great to see you all surviving the holidays.
Yeah, and happy and healthy New Year to everybody. We don't want to lose anybody else next year. Happy and healthy New Year.
Absolutely. To all our listeners, thank you everyone for being here for 2021. We'll see you and we'll have a great 2022. Good night, everyone.
Right on.